folks. Welcome back to Morning Thunder. A brutal Game 3. Thunder falling into a 2-1 hole on the road in Indiana after a 116-107 loss. Welcome to Morning Thunder. I'm your host, Bobby Howard, and let's get into this. Disappointing performance on a lot of fronts. Obviously, you have a lot higher hopes for this series than to be in this position, but I think to me it's infuriating the lack of detail the Thunder have shown in 2 of the 3 games of this series. Game 1, obviously, we talked about ad nauseum with how they failed to close out a Pacer team that was down, and they're going to come back because that's what they do, and you squander home court advantage with what they did. And that's what's frustrating about this, just as it was frustrating after Game 3 in Denver, is how the Thunder, you have to take care of business at home, because when you go on the road, everything shifts, and it's a really difficult environment to sort out in the fourth quarter. The Gainbridge Fieldhouse, that's a great crowd, a great environment, and the Thunder, you open yourself up to bad situations, which is what we had tonight. Starting with turnovers, 21 turnovers for OKC. This is one of the biggest strengths they have, is their ability to turn the other team over, their ability to control the turnovers themselves, and they were awful tonight, or last night. The sloppiness, the laziness, it felt like a mid-February, a week before All-Star break, everyone's kind of checked out type of performance in terms of the attention to detail. And it's going to get you beat in a situation like the NBA Finals, where you're playing at the highest level, your opponent's at the highest level, and some of these you just can't explain. The Pacers obviously defensively looked excellent. I thought their full court press was a sharp move. They put the pressure on the Thunder, really turned the screws on them. But some of these turnovers they didn't even have to work very hard for. And I think case in point, the inbound pass turnovers that we saw multiple times with TJ McConnell, just nipping a couple, off of it. Just, that can't happen. That just can't happen. Not only once you can call it a fluke, but if it continues to happen in a game, I just don't understand how you don't adjust to that. How you don't be like, oh, well, we can't let that happen again. We have to have attention to detail. And it showed a frustrating lack of what would you call it? Focus, attention, poise. And I know this is a young team that hasn't really been on this stage, but the Pacers also haven't been on this stage. It's not like they're some wizened old veteran crew, outside of Siakam. There really isn't a ton of finals experience at all. And I think that's just really frustrating to see in a moment where, if you lose that game, your backs are against the wall. It sets up a must-win Game 4 in their building. And you really, the Thunder just love to make it hard on themselves in these sort of situations. And it's really frustrating that we've kind of gotten to this point again. I think a lot more of my frustration is with Game 1 still. I know you have to kind of move on from it, but it's one of those things that it's a killer. When you go on the road, you can explain away, oh yeah, tough road environment, made some mistakes, it fell apart. But which is why you take care of business at home. Anyways, enough about that. Let's talk about the game itself. It really confusing, frustrating game, and it's not like the team looked different in one half than the other. They looked different in the first and third quarters than they did in the second and fourth. First quarter, I thought they were excellent. Came out great intensity. Chet Holmgren, really was establishing himself. Just looked excellent. I believe he had some 15 points in that first quarter. Or he was great early on. And second quarter comes around, kind of take your foot off the gas a little bit. Pacers scrap their way in, make it a game again. And the reason why they did that was the bench. The bench unit was excellent for Indiana. And that's, one of the things that's frustrating is, the Thunder, their depth is, one of the best in the league. And, the Pacers are one of the few teams that can really match it. And boy, did they not only did they match it, they completely swamped and overwhelmed the Thunder bench. TJ McConnell, excellent 10 points, but also, the 5 steals. He was all over the court. He was a pest. He was irritating. Very frustrating performance. And then Benedict Mathurin, who just had an unbelievable, performance off the bench, 27 points in just 22 minutes. He was an absolute X factor for the Pacers. Having that out of him, I mean, that can turn a game, turn a series. He really bounced back well. So you have these bench players show up. Halliburton kind of unlocks himself a little bit again. He was just sniping from deep. 4 for 8 from three. I felt like every single one of his threes were a backbreaker. It was a rebound away from a triple double. That was a really really good version of Tyrese Halliburton. They weren't able to really shut him down. And on the Thunder end of things, outside of Chet's early first quarter strength, he wasn't quite tremendous offensively through the other three quarters of the game. He was 0 for 6 from three, which is not great. I thought J-Dub had a bit of a rocky start, but he ended up having a pretty solid performance overall. 26 points, leading scorer in the game. I thought this was a really solid performance from him overall. He just couldn't, nobody could hit shots late. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, one of those as well. The counting stats look decent, but 9 for 20, just 1 for 3 from three. He only got six free throws. It was just a performance where he was struggling to, really get in rhythm, and you got to give it up to Nembhard. He stepped up. For the first time, Shai looked really, really uncomfortable in this game. He looked tired at the end. I don't know if it's a season high 42, but 42 minutes for Shai is a bit unusual. It's a high level, and you could tell in that fourth quarter, it really wore on him a ton. And I mean, just brutal. Just brutal. I thought Cason Wallace wasn't great. Lou Dort was, once again, I feel like he's been really, really good in this series. He's the one guy I could say that has been remarkable through all three games of these finals so far. He's shooting the ball well, playing great defense. Lou Dort was awesome tonight. 4 for 5 from three. The moon balls were, when those are raining on the road, you feel really darn good about that. But overall, the bench just not very impressive. Hardenstein only 4 points, Caruso 8 points, Isaiah Joe, who, look, he's been a no-show this entire postseason pretty much. He was excellent last night. 4 minutes, 6 points, 2 threes, 2 big threes that really, felt like kept the Thunder going, kept them in this game. And they just kind of never went back to him, which is really funny to me that the one time Joe really shows himself, that's the time you shelve him. I don't get it. It's odd to me. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty bad, getting outscored by Benedict Mathurin. Your entire bench got outscored by Mathurin by 9. So, I mean, that'll do it. I believe one stat at one point, the broadcast showed the bench had 19 points to the Thunder's 0 early. So it's just not going to cut it for OKC. So what now? And I know there are a lot of Thunder fans who are understandably kind of dooming a little bit about this one. And I get that. It's not fun facing down a 2-1 deficit, but a lot of the things that went wrong for the Thunder are controllable. I feel like the effort's controllable. I feel like there are a lot of things you can really button up, tighten up. Game threes have been a bit of a bugaboo for OKC. Same with Indiana, but those are different situations. The Thunder are more, fail to adapt to a new environment. The shift throws them off, while the Pacers are up to, and their opponent essentially needs that win or else their season's over. So I feel like those two situations are a bit different. So game 4, gotta have it. This is a team that's responded well all season long. We've seen it multiple times, honestly. We've seen it all throughout the playoffs. They've been excellent in game. As bad as they've been in game 3s, they've been great in game 4s. We saw it against the Denver Nuggets in a must win. We saw it against the Timberwolves in a maybe not must win, but a game that can really throw the dagger in the hearts of T-Wolf fans everywhere. And they're going to have a similar effort. You're going to have Shai have an MVP type performance. J-Dub's going to have to step up big. Chet's going to have to cut down on some inefficiencies. He gets too, I know there was a period of time where he could really dribble and really, command the ball and all that, but that's a part of his game he has to cut out for the time being. He probably can develop into that. If he doesn't, that's whatever. But for now, he's got to cut it out. It's just not there. It's just not there. It's been a problem all postseason long, and I don't know why he keeps doing it. It's causing too many turnovers, too much choppy offense, and it's just overconfidence. And I'm a guy who's confident in Chet. I like him. I will bet on Chet any day of the week. But that particular part of his offense just needs to be totally trimmed. Anyways, game 4, got to figure it out. I imagine the Pacers are going to go back to the press, which full court press, that was a move from Rick that I thought was really pretty sharp, pretty intense, and really pushed the chips into the table there. But the Thunder have a day to, kind of break that down, figure out, some gaps in that scheme, adapt, and move on. But it's gonna take a big effort behind a crazy Indianapolis crowd who's going to be, if they win that game, they're up 3-1, and we all know what that means. So it's going to be a tough environment, but OKC has had some experience in that department this postseason. So we'll find out. Not sure if we'll do anything before that game or not. I'll talk, but for the rest of the NBA Finals, we'll be covering this thing. So make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite place to listen to podcasts: Spotify, Apple, wherever, Stitcher. Who knows these days? As you can tell, my energy level is pretty damn low. Just like the Thunder's for Game 3. It's just a bummer. It's a bummer, but the great moments are never made out of blowouts. They're fun, but you always remember the ones where you really had to claw it out and figure it out. There's a reason why we remembered Game 4 in Denver, or Game 5 in Oklahoma City against Denver, more than the blowout in Game 2, because they needed it. The Thunder need this one. Thunder desperately need this one. Anyways, we'll talk to you soon. Have a good one, everyone. Keep the faith. Thunder up.